sermon series since after Christmas, Behold the Lamb, and we're going kind of through the life of Christ and talking about just points and pieces. It'll conclude at Easter, so that's the goal anyway. I'm trying to stay on track. You know how I am with staying on track with things, so that's what we're trying to do. But this morning I was reminded of a story about a guy who a few years ago, there was a CEO of a major company was asked what his biggest mistake was during a season of growth. The company was expanding fast and lots of good things was happening. Sales were strong and public attention was high and great things were happening with his company and with his company that he was CEO over. And whenever he was asked what his biggest mistake was, his response is one that came from deep reflection. He really had thought about this, and it's something that really we sometimes need to ask ourselves. He said, "We became so busy succeeding that we forgot to ask why we started in the first place." That sentence really stuck with me because of what it implied. We sometimes get to going and we go in a direction and we know why we start doing something, but along the way things happen and either we have hard times or we have good times, and it all becomes about growth and moving and what can we do to expand and go further and faster. But what he said there implies that sometimes success can be more dangerous than failure can be at times. And failure has a profound effect on us. It really does something to us that's beneficial. When we fail, our minds and our attitudes change, and it drives us to our knees. It causes us to look at our actions and our attitudes and our mentalities and makes us start examining, which opens us up to the possibility that there's things that we can do to change. Oftentimes we have a hard time with that when we look at ourselves, don't we? Oftentimes we think we've got it all together and someone wants to come up and suggest something and we're like, well, what do you know? Mind your own business. But boy, whenever you fall flat on your face and someone reaches out a hand, you're not so quick to say, I want the right hand instead of the left hand. You just say, okay, thank you, whatever you can do to help. And you're open to suggestions, and you're open to making changes in your life and even your character if you can. You're willing to accept guilt. You're willing to accept mistakes. So failure really does something that can help us. But success, it tends to tempt us to make us stand on our own and make us think, well, we just this is working and we've got it all figured out here. That's exactly where we find Jesus in Mark chapter 1. We're still in Mark chapter 1, have been for a couple weeks. And last week, if you remember, the time before, Jesus had been in the synagogue in Capernaum, which is up on the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee. It was where Peter and Andrew and some of the disciples lived. It was a fishing hub. It was a major fishing hub, a major trade port. And Jesus relocated his ministry there from Nazareth at some point. We don't know when that happened. And he went into the synagogue and he began to preach with authority, something they had not seen or experienced. And they were astonished at his teachings. And during that teaching, there's people that were sitting in the congregation, and one of them was demon-possessed, and the truth really got under his skin. And he stood up, started freaking out and everything else. And that's what tends to happen many times in a church, is when the truth starts coming out, those who aren't there for the right reason don't like it too much. And this demoniac, he didn't like it too much. And Jesus cast this demon out and displays this great power, and people are amazed by this. And then he turns right around. It says immediately he left there and he went to Peter's house. And the synagogue from there to Peter's house, probably from here maybe down to the sign down the road here. It's just not very far. And he walked over there, and so all these people, they're following him over there to Peter's house, and because they're amazed over this power that he has and the presence that he carries with him. And of course, the word was getting out quick, and people were congregating at the door of the house because Jesus starts doing great works there, and the whole city, it says, gathers there. Right there at the door, and he continues to cast out demons and heal the sick before them well into the night. He didn't wait for a church service to end. He just kept doing it because he had compassion for them. And people were excited, and things were going great for his ministry with what was going on, and rightfully so, because there was this new powerful work that was manifesting itself right before their eyes, unlike anything they had ever seen before. But today we see something kind of surprising. Something opposite of what you would expect him to do after such a great success. And Jesus walks away from all the crowds that have gathered. Let's look at that. Let's take a look at this back in Mark, in verse 35, 135. It says, in the early morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went away to a secluded place and was praying there. So Jesus had worked late the night before. Think about this. He worked late the night before, and then these crowds that were drawn by the supernatural power, by the miracles, by the healing, and with it came great excitement about what was happening. And in response, he doesn't do like we would do if a great move of God broke out and we had an evangelist come and revival broke out. We say, you've got to stay. We've got to extend our meetings, wouldn't we? Let's keep on going. No. In response, he doesn't get up to his adoring crowds to build on that movement and continue on. Instead, he retreats from all that. And now we see him looking and finding a place of darkness. When it says that he got up at about that time, it was between probably 3 to 6 o'clock in the morning. And he went and found this place of darkness, a place of silence, a place of isolation, a place of prayer. And it wasn't accidental. It was intentional. He did this for a reason. You know, you would think with a night before, you have great expectation of what's going to happen the next day. An expectation can be a powerful thing. And I'm coming back to this for just a moment because we need to know and understand that whenever we come to church, we should come to church expecting something from God. We should be expectant, coming with great expectation that if nothing else, God is going to have a word for us. Or if nothing else, we're going to have opportunity to praise Him with our brothers and sisters. Have great expectation that we're going to be able to see each other and have fellowship. But great expectation is something that can be built upon. It's something that can be faith-building. But expectation, even though we can see breakthrough if it's handled right, that's not the most important thing. Supernatural moves is not the most important thing that fuels meaningful, lasting breakthroughs in people's lives. And we want to see breakthroughs in people's lives, in our lives, and those that are around us. See, Jesus, He understood this. He knew about this. He said, well, of course, He's God. He knows everything. He did not know everything while He was in His physical body. He laid aside his godly attributes. He was still God, but he laid aside that power. How do you know? Because he was not everywhere at once at that moment. He was not omnipresent. He did not walk through walls. He still had to eat. He still had to, he was tied to the very things that we are. He was sinless, but he had laid those things aside. And he understood something here, that something else needed to happen right at that moment. At that moment, he could have welled up in pride. In that moment, he could have just been thrilled with the accolades and just continue to build on that. But he knew there's a danger in that as well. And so the morning after all this happened, it required for him to come back in a line, which he was still in line, but to make sure he's in line with God's plan to sustain the work that God had for him to do. Here's something that we need to understand. The greatest danger in ministry is not opposition to the work. It's not the people or the enemy saying bad things about you. Yes, those are bad. Those are dangerous things, and the temptations are dangerous things. But it is actually the distraction from the plan and the purpose of God that is the most dangerous thing that can happen in our lives. Becoming distracted from God and what He has for us and our relationship with Him. Because He is the life giver. One of the most difficult distractions that comes along, we have distractions every single day, don't we? Our works, our families, some things we have to have happen, but we have all kinds of things that distract us. One of them is this stupid thing here. This is a love-hate relationship with this thing. I want to throw it out the window, but then I'm like, well, where would I Google where to get another one? I don't know. It's kind of one of those deals. But you can get distracted so easy, and distraction is something that will derail us in our walk with the Lord. One of the most difficult distractions comes from success. I've seen it happen a lot. I've seen it happen with people in the church who's gotten successful, and they've allowed that success to become the most important thing in their life, and they end up sacrificing some of their walk with the Lord. Oh, they're not walking away from God usually, but they wind up not serving Him or seeking Him or in the close relationship like they once had because they got distracted. I've seen it in church happen a lot. You see church stories all the time where a church has a great move and they grow and good things happen and maybe everything explodes for them, and then they start writing books and all kinds of things, or it could be anything comes along and it distracts the leader many times, and it disarms their effectiveness in the kingdom of God. Their success distracts them from the source of their power. We have to protect against that. They start doing too much in their own power. Before you know it, things are no longer moving forward. And this is when we see volunteers in the church or people that's in the church, they quit the church or the pastor leaves because they can't do anymore. Both for ministers and people in the church. You get worn out. And it's not that they've necessarily burned out. I was talking to Robbie about this while he was here one day, and we were talking about burnout compared to just being worn out. People just get worn out. That's from this side of the pulpit and that side of the pulpit. It happens on both sides. And it's not that anybody wants to quit. They simply just can't do anymore, and they become too weak to go on. That's when the enemy comes in like a flood. That's when the enemy steps up, and he comes in and he starts to attack. Have you ever seen the National Geographic videos or a wildlife video, and you have that English dude, and there's a nice dinner or whatever, Here's a crowd of buffalo or whatever it is, And here's these jackals, and they're watching all these big bad ones going along. Nope. Oh, here's a straggler, the one that's wore out. Let's get that one. That's the one they go after. This is what the enemy does to each and every one of us. Of course, he's going to attack all of us, but he really, really goes after those that are weary and wore out. He attacks you from every place that he possibly can. He attacks you in your ministry. He attacks you in the church. He attacks you in your home. He attacks you in your work. And if he still can't get you to derail and walk off, he attacks the people that you love. So hard. So hard to watch people that you love and care about. You can't do anything, and he's attacking them. And it all wears you out, tears you down. And the attacks become unbearable to those that are exhausted, and the task becomes joyless that they're doing that they used to do with satisfaction and love, and it becomes pressure that is driven by demand and the burden of other people. Jesus gives us an example of what we need to do in those situations. The course that we need to take. See, the crowd wanted more from him. The crowd expected more from him. The disciples, they could have been simply saying, I thought we were going to build a ministry here. What are you doing? The town wanted Jesus to stay there. But Jesus knew something that so many of us don't give enough attention to. Myself included. I know you all are going to be sitting here thinking, Pastor, you're one of the worst people that do this that I've ever seen. And I know I was sitting there putting this message together going, I feel like such a hypocrite preaching this sermon today. But I preach it to myself as well. It's a reminder, just like the story at the beginning of the that I began with is sometimes we forget why we're doing something, and we're going through the motions, and we end up just worn out going, oh, what are we doing now? Because we've forgotten. Jesus knew something here that we need to glean from this. He does something that's essential for absolutely anyone who is a disciple of Christ. What is it that he does in response to these pressures? In response to saying, people going, come on, we want you here. He gets up early while everybody else is asleep, and he leaves. He finds a solitary place. He finds a place where he can be alone with God and praise. Think about that for a minute. God, the Son of God, God the Son, had to pray. Let that settle for just a second. He had authority over demons. Authority over sickness. He knew who he was. He had authority in his teaching. And yet he still had to withdraw to pray. And we find that throughout Scripture that he did this many times. He would go find a place to pray. Go find a place to pray. Go find a place to pray. Why would the Son of God take time to pray? Because what he had and what sustained him flows from a relationship that's out of this world. A supernatural relationship. He needed to commune with his Father. He's our Father too, by the way. See, power without prayer will turn into pride eventually. Influence without prayer, it becomes just an ego. You pump from a well long enough or more like a cistern without replenishing it, it's going to run dry. Working without renewal will leave you desolate dry, wore out. Jesus wasn't praying because he currently lacked power. He was praying because, number one, he refused to act independently of the Father. His goal was to not forget why he was doing it. To remember that and to be aligned with that. Sounds familiar. He did the same thing in the wilderness whenever he was tempted. He refused independence. And here he reinforces dependence upon God. You know, and I want you to understand something about this. He didn't do this with a heart of keeping his Father pleased. I got to make sure that I do this so that God is pleased with me and he won't cut me off of his power. That's not why he done that. He did this because he understood that his very relationship with the Father is what was the most important thing to maintain. That relationship needed to be cultivated. It needed attention. Like any relationship, he continually needed to intentionally pursue him to keep that connection strong. He wasn't going to fall on his face before him to say, God, don't cut me off now. No, he went to just commune with the Father. You know, God is not the one that needs us to seek him. He doesn't need us to seek him. He needs nothing. It's us people that are in bodies of flesh that need to maintain that connection to make sure that relationship is healthy. He's always there. It's us that's not. We're like the sheep that wanders away, you know, the one that Jesus talked about that wanders away, and the shepherd goes and leaves the 99 to go after the one. That sheep, it's just wandering off. Oh, there's another tuft of grass over there. Oh, another one over there. Not doing nothing mean. And he doesn't realize he's just wandering away. That's what we have a tendency of doing. We're the ones that have that tendency to do that even in relationships with one another. You can look at our relationships with each other, and you're not as close to people as you once were. And not because you're mad at them or anything, you weren't around them. You didn't spend time with them. See, it's us that needs to do this to maintain that connection. We also need the renewal and the strength that comes with time with him. He's the one who empowers us. He's the one who gives us our strength. He's the one who is our life source for everything. And we need that time with him. We need that relationship with him. Isaiah 40:31 tells us, "Yet those who wait for the Lord will gain new strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not get tired. They will walk and not become weary." You notice all those things that he says, those that wait upon him, not those that are listening to him in their AirPods while they're goofing off doing something else. Nothing wrong with that. But sometimes we need to take time and dedicate it to waiting upon him. Anybody here, and I'm going to use myself as an example. This is a rhetorical question. I do not expect an answer. Anybody here have a conversation with me before, and you're sitting there going, I can't get a word in edgewise, and I'd like to say something here, but he won't shut up? Thank you for not acknowledging that. Because I know I've been that person. I've seen the looks on your face. So oftentimes we go to God in prayer, and that's what we do to him. We talk, and we put things in our ears. We do all this stuff. And he's just waiting for us to sit down and be quiet and wait and listen for him. That's what he desires. I was telling my wife here earlier this week that, I don't understand sometimes. I can tell people things. I tell them, They don't listen. Tell them, don't listen. They don't tell them, don't listen. And it's not until I yell at them, stop! Then they listen. And I say, I feel like such a jerk doing that. You think God wants to do that to us? He wants to be able just to say very calmly, do this. Do this. He wants to whisper to you. He doesn't want to be viewed as the big, mean, loud father. He wants to be viewed as the tender, caring father. And he can't do that if he's always having to scream at you to get you to stop doing something. And he's not doing that to hurt you. He's doing that because he doesn't want you driving your car over a cliff. And he's just trying to stop you from killing yourself. But he has to sometimes. He has to scream at you sometimes to get your attention because he loves you. So it's important that we spend time with him, quiet time with him, dedicated time with him, and nobody else and nothing else. And even in that time, stopping and just saying, okay, God, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to just be quiet and wait for you to speak to me, and just start 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I know some people say, well, I sit down and I'll read my Bible and he can speak to me that way. And that's good and that's fine. But sometimes you need to just stop and just do nothing except wait for him. Think and meditate on him. Turn your ringer off to your phone so you don't hear nothing. Yeah. See, we're the ones who's limited here. We're the ones that will wander away and from the one that is absolutely incapable of wandering away from us. We're the ones that need to continually connect to sustain us to anybody else. And even Jesus experienced this while he was wrapped in flesh. But he understood that. He valued that. So he retreated to connect with the one that he loves above all else, the one who is that was guiding him, and it was to make sure he maintained that relationship with him. With that connection, with that connection that he had with him, that relationship came the source of his power, and that was the source of his strength, and it was the source of his joy, and the source of his peace. But it wasn't those things that he was after, it was the Father he was after in that relationship. But not everyone understood what he was doing here. The disciples, they didn't get it. They didn't get a lot of things. And, the only reason why we get more is because we have hindsight and we get to see what they thought and what happened. But it says in Mark 1:36, Simon and his companions searched for him, and they found him and said to him, everyone is looking for you. This passage reveals the disciples' mindset. He tells them, hey, Jesus, not just us, everyone wants to see you. Everybody's looking for you. If you give it a translation here, the crowd is ready, the platform's set, the opportunity's here. We've got the Sprint Center rented out. You're trending, you got 300 million likes. Come on, let's strike while the iron's hot. But Jesus doesn't chase the momentum. He does not try to build a brand or write a book. He does not stay where he's popular and where it would be easy for him to continue to build ministry. If you look at cultural things, it was actually profound wisdom that he was operating in. And I won't get into all that today, but it would have been detrimental to his, and it ended up being detrimental to the ministry if he'd drew too big of a crowd in Capernaum. You see, he doesn't chase the popular, because popularity is not proof of purpose. Popularity is not, and even popularity in ministry is not proof that God is moving in the direction that that he wants to move in that church, in that place. How do I know? Because the largest church in the United States has a Quran in their church alongside their Bible. And I won't even say what one it is. Largest Christian church. See, he's chasing popularity. That's what's gotten him there. Now, while the disciples, they were thinking of expansion, Jesus was thinking of obedience. He was thinking of the direction that his ministry was supposed to be going in, the direction he was supposed to be going in. So how does he respond to this? In Mark chapter 1, verse 38, he answers them this. They want him to stay there, and he answers them this. He said to them, "Let us go somewhere else to the towns nearby, so that I may preach there also, for that is what I came for." Oh boy, he kind of got realigned with where he was going, didn't he? He leaves the success behind where he is at. Why? Because prayer not only nurtured his relationship with the Father, it also clarified his mission. It also reminded him of where he was going. Prayer protects God's calling from being distorted and us from being deceived. Because we look at circumstances and we look at success many times and we say, "Oh, God must be in this. This must not be God telling me to do this." At my last church, I was, when I left on a high note. They were upset that I was leaving. They told me that I wasn't hearing from God. I was popular there. They told me I wasn't hearing from God. The district superintendent didn't think I was hearing from God. And I knew God was telling me, "No, it's time for you to go. It's time for you to go." And I didn't leave in discouragement. It was just God was telling me to go at that time. Don't worry, there's not a resignation coming after this. Or maybe some of you going, "Darn." But I knew God was speaking, and I resigned and we left. And just not long after that, it all started. And we went through probably the most difficult year I'd ever been through. And I reflected back on that, and I would have totally destroyed that church if I'd have stayed there while I was going through what I was going through. God knew exactly I knew then that God was telling me what I needed to do. And part of that, part of that, it was a very difficult year. Part of that year was prepping me for this church. Prepping me for some things that I'd be dealing with here. Not bad things, not church administration things or anything like that, but dealing with difficult things, people going through difficult things and understanding that, I guess you'd say. See, sometimes God tells us to do things that is not popular, and all the evidence looks like you're crazy for what you're doing. But see, Jesus understood this, and he understood that he had to be hearing from the Lord in order to be moving in that direction and continuing the direction that he needed to go. And of course he knew what he was talking about. See, prayer again protects God's calling from being distorted and us from being deceived. And prayer keeps authority from becoming self-serving. Without prayer, what happens is authority becomes fleshly controlled. Power becomes pride. People get prideful because of the power that they have. And success very easily can become your identity without prayer. Without prayer, you can end up identifying everything you've done can be the thing that becomes what you're all about, or what you consider about yourself to be true is connected to that. And the problem with that is when success fades, identity becomes crushed. People become confused. And did you know that we see this happen with a lot of men? When they retire or they can't work anymore, their whole life's been identified with or connected to what they do. Their identity's been connected to that. And did you know the highest suicide rate in men are senior citizens? It's like 60 and up is the highest percentage. That's profound. Because your identity cannot be connected to success, because success is going to go away. Productivity is going to go away. Trust me, I know. I started figuring out I don't get near as much done as I used to get done. Anybody that's over 50, you know that's true. And all you ladies are sitting here going, see, you men, you got a real problem. Blah, blah, blah. Well, you just wait until you become an empty nester. Boy, that last kid goes out the door, yeah, that's a roller coaster. You go through your own thing. So we all have our problems. But with prayer, authority that's given serves people. It serves God. With prayer, power restores what's depleted. The mission stays pure. You stay on track. You continue to be able to go where He wants you to go and be replenished and endure and not become weary. Many of us want what Jesus had. We want impact. We want clarity. We want authority. But too often we do not want what Jesus practiced. Withdrawal from the praise, silence from the opinions of mere men, and solitude from distractions, and really dependence on somebody else. But it's that dependence in that relationship with the life giver who answers to no one that gives us everything that we need. So if the Son of God needed prayer to stay aligned with the Father, how much more do we? How much more do we need to continue on in the right direction? You know, some of you are tired. I should say some of us are tired. But it's not because you're doing bad things. Not at all. But maybe it's because you're doing many good things without withdrawing. Did you know you could do that? I had a preacher tell me one time, it was when I came back to the Lord and I first, I remembered I was called to the ministry, and I was talking to him about that, and he told me, JD, if Satan cannot get you to sit on your hands and do nothing, he's going to jump on your back and he's going to ride you until you are wore out doing everything. And I thought, what? Kind of deal. 2 Thessalonians 3:13 says, but as for you, brethren, do not grow weary of doing good. Weary in well-doing is what he was saying here. We can grow weary by doing too much. And that it's not, everything is too much if you're not spending time with the Lord. You're too busy and too active. We're working to be responsible, and we feel like we are needed, and we probably are, and you probably are. But if you're not praying, you're gonna be too wore out to do anything. And while you're wore out, then the enemy's really going to attack you, and he's really going to hurt you. Eventually, authority, power, and works without prayer collapses. And we got to understand that prayer is not weakness. It is alignment with the only one that has ever loved us unconditionally. The one that brings joy, the one that brings peace, the one that brings purpose, the one that brings power, the one that is going to completely renew you, strengthen you. Galatians 6:9 says, let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not grow weary. See how much we hear about growing weary? The only way to not grow weary is not to sit on our hands and do nothing. It's to be renewed by the one that gives us the power and the strength that we need. Jesus walked away from applause to stay aligned with the Father, to renew his strength but it's really to work on his relationship with the Lord to make sure it stayed strong. He walked away from crowds to stay committed to the mission that God had for him. Power that restores must remain rooted in relationship. So this morning, the question I have is, when was the last time did you withdraw and be alone with the Lord? Doesn't mean you got to go to the desert. Some of us need a desert. But when was the last time you just took time to be alone with him and seek him so you could hear God clearly? This morning I want to ask you if you have a prayer need and you want us to agree with you in prayer. If you want to come down to the altar, I'll be happy to pray with you. And folks, it's okay to get tired and admit, I'm tired. You just pray for each other then. You say, well, I'm here to hold you up. Because everybody gets there. They get that way. I'm going to feel like that our focus for this year, the church, needs to be about drawing nearer to the Lord in our relationships in prayer. We have workers in the church that work and help us so much, but they're getting tired. Getting more out, not from everything with the church, just the church, it's life and everything. And the best thing that we can do is to get focused back on the life giver and watch what he'll do. I think it's something that we need desperately in our church. We need to get refocused and recalibrated and realigned. Hey.